Okay, we're going to be painting a dragonfly using ProCreate default brushes, mainly the round brush for the base, some acrylic, but everything we use is going to be found inside the ProCreate defaults, so you do not need to go and buy anything. Anyway, we're going to start on the first layer with the round brush. I want my dragonfly to be blue, so I'm going to start with a nice little blue here. And, oh, by the way, the canvas is 11 by 14 inches. Anyway, I'm going to come in here and I am just going to basically pen in what I want to be the torso. Doesn't need to be perfect. It's just simple dragonfly. So we have that, and that's perfect enough for me. We're going to move down to another layer. So make sure that layer is underneath. And then I'm going to go a little darker so we can tell the layers apart. And a little wide at the top here, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to make a long tail. So we'll widen at the top here, and then it's going to taper in. So I'm going to taper near the bottom, up and down like this. I use the pressure sensitivity to kind of lighten off at the bottom here. All right. And once you're satisfied, I'll be satisfied to move that a little over. Up out there. There. Once you're satisfied, we can move on to the top. And yes, I know what this is starting to look like, so we'll get past that point by doing the top part right here and adding a little dragonfly head like that. And then we're going to want to go to a layer above all that, and we're going to go to the technical pen under inking, and let's go with a nice teal. Technical pen, make sure that's selected. It is. And then we are going to come outward and create a wing. I'm going to make that a little wider. I'm going to taper in like this. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to bring it back here. Kind of like that. I'm going to erase this top piece though, because I actually want that to come in a little more narrow. Like so. I'm going to tap that off so I can do a color fill. I'm going to take that, duplicate it, flip it to the other side, turn it, make sure it matches up. Let's have this side offset a little more upwards than the other wing. I'm going to merge those together, and then we are going to go to a layer underneath, make this a little darker. We're going to do the same thing, but for the smaller wings underneath. Like that. And I should go a little bigger than that. More so a little taller. Here, let's just redo that one. Did I select a new layer? I did. All right. Bring this out to basically there. And then back in. Close that. That's better. Duplicate that. Flip it other way. Over here. And again, we're going to keep that same offset. And because of that offset, I'm actually going to widen this a little bit up like that. And this one I'm going to widen a little lower. Like that. There, so we have the base paint of our dragonfly. And I am actually going to now go and make these slightly larger on both sides. Like that. And then same thing, other side. Make that slightly larger. I'm going to turn it a little more. Offset it a little more than that. Even more than that. About there. There, I'm more satisfied with that. I'm actually going to shorten the body a little bit, like that, and bring the tail up. All right, here we go. So we have the base paint. Now we're going to go back to body. We're going to alpha lock that. And I know a lot of you guys are right-handed, so we are going to make sure the light is coming from the left. We're going to go back to painting, round brush. And we are going to lighten it up on the side that the light's coming from. And we're going to get slightly darker. Darker than that. And then even darker than that. Almost pitch black, but not quite. Nope. There we go. So when you look in, it's still blue. And then up where the head is, I'm going to darken that a little bit. Head would cast a shadow. Like that. The wings would cast more of a shadow. Like this. There. And we're going to go down and we're going to do the same for the tail. Alpha lock it. Darker further to the right it is. Blue to the left. Again, this is just the round brush. And then we're going to go even lighter. And then because we want the separation between the body, the body and the tail, we're going to come in and just slightly darken up underneath here. I'm actually going to clean this edge up a little bit right here. Eraser, also using the round brush. There we go. And now we have a kind of painted but not fully painted torso here. So we're actually going to go back to the torso, make a layer over top, clipping mask it, and set this to add. I'm going to make a nice light blue, use the round brush once more, and slide the sides of the brush down, and we are just going to tap in very lightly where the light will be catching the most. There. And I like to do these kind of like little beaded highlights like this, where you just kind of tap in a bunch of little highlighted circles. If you go too bright, like that one there that I just did, just undo, back up, try again. It's a little bit of trial and error, pressure sensitivity, but just keep lightly tap, very lightly tap. Here, creates a little bit of a glimmer effect. And down by the base of the tail, or by the base of the body, by the tail, I should say. Tap that in, tap that in. There we go. There's a rough idea. And then we're going to go and we are going to do the exact same thing for the tail. So again, clipping mask above it, and add layer. And then we're going to tap in, tap in, tap in. We're not going to do too many of the tap-ins here because there's going to be other details we add that kind of cover this up. So we're just going to lightly tap in a little bit up here and then move on from the tail. Back to the body, we're actually going to go darker blue here, and we are going to use the wet acrylic. And we are just going to tap in a little bit of a blend from dark to light here. Go with a more sky blue here, kind of edging over like that. And then once again, near black, but not quite solid black at the edges. And really bring out the definition where the wings lift off the body. Again, by the head, over here like this. Down into where the tail connects. There we go. Perfect. And then we're going to do the same thing with the head. We're going to alpha lock that. Back to the round brush. Near black on the right to lighter blues over on the left. And we can use this moment to actually sort of define where we want the eyes to be without making a separate eye layer. Like so. And then we can just catch a couple glints of light off the eye here. Just tap, tap, tap. And same thing over here. on the right side, but don't do this, because then that insinuates that there's light coming from both directions. So we're gonna put a couple glints of light on the left side, and then on the right eye, we're gonna do the same thing, but on the left side of the eye, as the light's coming from that side. More like that. And the light catches the front of the eye here. Let's go thinner on the brush. Cross like that. And across like this. More so like that. Then we're going to go a layer above that, and you guessed it, we are going to go clipping mask, and then we are going to go add layer. Make that slightly larger, and then we are going to tap in a couple of the highlights, the beaded highlights once more, where the light hits the most. Like so. I'm going to back off on the sides a bit, and we're going to do the same thing in the top parts where the light catches the eyes. So, and then we're going to make a subtle but definitive line between the eye and the head, and then a less definitive, even more subtle line on the right side. Like so. And then we're going to go back down to the normal layer here and make another layer underneath. It is also going to be additive, and it will also clip. And we are going to go to the spray paints and the flicks. And between the two planes of dark and light, we are just going to flick in a little bit of texture, almost like a little salt and pepper texture, like so. More defined down here, and then back it off a bit on the dark side here. And then we're going to repeat that same step for the body. Again, just tapping in these textures. Bring it down, bringing it down. Almost invisible near the shift to the dark. So use the eraser to just make that a little more subtle. Just tap with the eraser, tap with the eraser. So it's still there. You can see it, but it's very, very subtle. And then we're going to move on and do the same thing for the tail. Again, making sure that that second clipping is add. And we're not going to spend much time on the tail because, again, there's going to be extra details that start to cover it. Like so. Now, we're going to go above the tail layer. And we are going to, let's say, go with a nice purple. And we're actually going to make our way to luminescence. And we are going to go with the light brush. Now let's test that. Let's see how that looks. That looks decent. But I want to go even darker than that. More like that. We're going to bring that around like this. And then we're going to go back over a couple of the areas, like so, to bring areas of light, areas that fork off, areas that connect back into the body, kind of overlap, go over here, fade out. So there's one tassel, or little tendril or bioluminescent tail, part of the tail. And we're going to do a few of these. And again, this is the layer above the tail. Be careful to lighten up when you go over top, because if you crisscross like that, it ends up getting a little too bright. So be mindful of your pressure sensitivity. We're going to bring this one down. Kind of has like a little playful meandering to the line all the way down. We're going to make a second one right through here. I'd actually like it to come out this way first. Back in, like this. And skip up over to right here. Then we're going to bring it all the way across here. Almost like a DNA strand with the other tail. All the way down. Except we're going to make this one slightly longer and taper off like that. Now, we're going to go underneath the tail and slightly darker than that. We are going to do the same thing. That should be under, not clipped. That. Slightly darker than that. There we go. And we are going to just kind of play in with some tails in the back here. Not too detailed. You can be more wispy and move a little more quickly with these ones. Bring this one out. More so that. That. And in these ones here, we are actually going to use the Gaussian blur and put that to about 2%. So it's a subtle blur. And if you take away the background, you kind of get this. Looks pretty cool. Now, above all of it, but below the body still, we're actually going to go to a lighter pink here. We're going to return to the painting flex. So spray paints, flicks, this guy again, and we're going to go a little bigger. And we're just going to kind of tap around, almost like there's dust coming off the tail. Magic dust, fairy dust, dragonfly dust, whatever you want to call it. Like so. And for bigger pieces, you could actually go to Elements, I believe it is, and go to Driven Snow. And tap in bigger pieces. Gosh, and blur those. Lighten them up a bit. Change your size. Anything you want. I'll change your size a bit and then hide them kind of here in the middle. Like that. And the parts that stray away a little more, I'll lighten those up or erase them entirely. More so like that. I'm going to take these 3 layers, I'm going to pinch them together. So again, that's this layer, and this layer. So these 3. So the flicks, the driven snow, and the top layer of the tail. Actually, you can duplicate that layer, make the layer underneath an additive layer. Make sure it's not alpha locked. So now that that's an add layer, I am going to Gaussian blur it to about 14%. And then I am going to change the opacity to about 35, giving that subtle glow. It's there, but very subtle. Now these bits on the tail, you can make them any color you want. Didn't have to be purple. I just wanted to do that for the sake of contrast between the blue and something else. All right, now we have the wings to move on to. And you know what? I think I'm going to make the wings even bigger than this. More so like this. And then I'll position these more proper. Like so. Like so. Now, each one of these, I'm actually going to blur about 3%. 3%. The opacity is going to go down to about 70 on either of the wings. Like so. And we're going to alpha lock each of the wings. We're going to return to a teal color. But we're going to go dark and in near the body with the wet acrylic brush. we are going to darken the wings toward the middle like this. And go darker and darker to close to the body. And then we're going to do a little subtle bit of darkness here, just subtle, on both sides of the wings, like so. And in the middle, we're going to go lighter, like so. And again, it's super subtle, hardly notice the difference. And you put that straight down the middle. We're going to return with a wet acrylic eraser. Make sure the opacity is down around 20 to 30%. And we are going to tap the existence of the wing here till it's nearly non-existent. This is usually how you see me do my transparency effects. If you see me do the Fey Dragon or any of my winged creatures and you can see through the wings, this is exactly how you do that. And it's different levels of transparency. The middle of the wing here where it's catching the most light, where it bends, is more transparent than the edges, which is why we move the whole thing down to 70% transparency. However, are causing more transparency with this tapping effect in the middles. Like so. And then on a layer above that, we're actually going to come in with, let's say, the light pen. We could use the round brush, but for simplicity, let's just keep it to the light pen. We need to go wider than that. And we're just going to make the subtle little veins you would find in the dragonfly wing. Right here. This little guy over here. Just to the edge. Let's have another one come off here. Here. Bring this one up and connect. Like that. Now kind of fade off like that. Now you could be lazy and you can just duplicate this and flip it over. But I'm actually going to draw both sides in. Simply because I just want a little bit of asymmetry going on here. Perfect symmetry doesn't really exist in nature. Like that. And once you're satisfied with that, we are going to clip these together. Sorry, merge them together. We are going to make a layer above, set it to add, and we're going to return to the flicks. Make sure this clips down. So we're going to clipping mask. And then we're going to edge in a little bit here, and then a little bit down this way toward the body, like that. And then edges, we're really going to buff up with this. That. I'm going to do that to both sides. Get a little lighter in there. That. And like that. And again, buff up these outmost edges. And we're actually going to blur this about 1%. I'll lighten it up just a little bit. Like that. And then when we're satisfied with that, I actually want to come in with the light brush. So above all this, I want to come in with the light brush under luminescence. Make sure it's nice and thin. And I want to gently tap in some bioluminescence into the top of each of these wings, especially towards the outside on this left wing where the light's hitting most. Bring a little bit in here too. Actually, once we're done with the bioluminescence on the top and bottom there, we can return to the add layer. and actually use wet acrylic and just tap in some rougher texture towards the end there. You know what? I'm going to want to go with a little more texture in that and even darker color. More like this. And I'm going to repeat that for the other side on the other wing. Tap, tap, tap. And then one final subtle piece is we're going to go above. This layer is not going to clip. And we're going to return to the round brush. Make sure it's additive. And we are going to tap in the suggestion of exactly where this wing ends. It's more to just, it's not a solid outline as that doesn't exist in nature, but lets the viewer's eye kind of lock onto something that's like, hey, that's the edge. And again, it's going to be a little more definitive on the side with the light, but not solid. Tap a couple beaded highlights in here, 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 and then a couple on the other side, but not a lot because the other side is not the side in the most amount of light. Like so. And we're going to take it a step further. Put it above everything. These top wings, this group here, we can group it together now. We are done with that except for a multiplicative or multiply layer. Let's go with a subtle blue. We're going to make our way to materials and old skin. Whatever size you want. But we are just going to slightly tap this in. Let's go much bigger than that. So we're still in the correct layer. I'm going to max out that size. There we go. I'm actually going to duplicate that. And I'm going to make sure this clips. Like that. And bring in the eraser. And make sure there's none on the very edges of the wing. Like so. And then there's some areas where I'm going to lighten it up. Like so. And then I am going to gauge and blur that 1%. And lighten the thing up as a whole to about 75%. And for simplicity's sake, I will actually just flip between the wings here. As there's so much detail with the lines going on in here, you can't tell if it's symmetrical or not. Make sure there's no bleed over between the sides before I merge them. Like so. There. We're done with those top wings. Pinch them together. And we're basically going to do the same for the bottom wings. So we're going to alpha lock those. We're going to return back to the darker side of acrylic paint, the darker teal, and we are going to repeat the steps. You could be lazy and copy and paste the bottom wings completely to save on time, but just for the sake of practice, I'd recommend doing the whole shot. And remember, there's going to be a darker shadow on these bottom wings, which if you copy and paste the top to the bottom, you'll have to remember to add this in. But those top wings will be casting a shadow down on these bottom wings. Like so. And then we're going to go with the lighter teal. And we're gonna subtly put that in here and here, and then we're gonna go even lighter than that, like that, and like that. And then same rule with the acrylic, wet acrylic eraser, and we're just gonna kind of tap out the existence of the middle of these wings, like that. Getting that nice transparency effect. That. A little more on this side. And the layer above, same thing. We're going to create those veins with, again, the luminescence light pen. And these ones we can put in a little more loose and subtle, just because the light is being blocked from the upper wings, like that. Like that. Across top. Pinch that together with the bottom wing. And again, we're going to go up, clipping mask, additive, back to paint and flicks, or spray paints rather, and flicks. And zap in a couple. Here, here, a little more on the edges. And then once more, we are going to gauge and blur those about 1 to 2% on the bottom wings. Erase near the edges. And we're going to return with the acrylic, wet acrylic rather. Bring that way down again. And then just kind of blast in where a couple more of the highlights would exist that aren't blocked by the wing above. Like that. And a little over here, just tap that in. And above that, on another additive layer, this one not clipping, we are going to do the same thing again with the round brush and bring in that more definitive but subtle layer. And it's going to be even lighter than the top one because, again, light is being blocked by the upper wing. But because it's transparent, some does get through. So, like so. And then bump this up a little bit, and we're going to do a couple of beaded highlights. More on the left side than the right once more. Tap those in, tap those in, tap those in. Like that. Pinch those together. We can even pinch these wings together, like so. I'm going to return to the body, down to a darker blue, wet acrylic, and I am just going to kind of finesse up this area where the wings connect. Here, here, kind of line between them there, here, like that. I'm going to go buff everything. And I am going to go to a teal on a light brush under luminescence. And just kind of zap in the separation of the wings to the body. Like that. And there we have our dragonfly. So bit by bit, you can actually pinch all these layers together. Like so. And then we're going to give this little guy some legs. The legs are super simple. Just need the round brush for that. And let's put the background in so you can see. And let's draw him as if we're planning on him holding on to something. So tap this, tap that. The little knuckles on the end here, where we have front parts of his wings, or legs rather, come in like this. And let's bring this one a little more hooked in like this, like he's grabbing onto something. And then to create a little bit of definition, same thing, we're going to go to like almost a teal white. And around this knuckle, we are going to tap in a couple highlights along this play or part of the leg. We're going to tap in a couple highlights and repeat the same thing over here. Along this knuckle, again on the left side, that's where the light's coming from. Here, a little bit down the middle here, like so. Actually, let's pull that out and instead take a single streak of the wet acrylic, like that, and not on the right side. So he has little legs there. And then let's be lazy on this. Let's flip these, turn them around, like so. And once more underneath the body. Let's pull these over here, and I am actually, so it doesn't look so obvious that you did that, I'm going to play around a little bit with the positions of the legs. That one under the wing. This is the second one, so we're going to bring that down a little more. We're actually going to flip that. Bring this over. Like so. Like so. Again, these middle ones here, I want them more in, like he's grabbing onto something. Just put these way underneath, like that. Have this one kicked more like that. Perfect. Pinch those together, and then you can resize them. Make them huge, make them small. It's just a little dragonfly, so they're going to be pretty small. Like that. Down like this. And then underneath all of this, sorry, I can merge that together first. Underneath all of this, let's put a bit of a background, subtle background. So let's go like kind of a mint green. I'm going to go to organic. And I like using the reed brush. I'm going to bump that right up. And just whip in a shape of grass like so. This tiny little guy is on a blade of grass. Can alpha lock that blade of grass and darken the one side. Go lighter on the other side. And then darker underneath where the dragonfly is. Like so. There's our little blade of grass that he's on. Behind that, let's go with a night scene. So let's go to a very deep, almost purpley blue, like a royal blue or a violet We're going to go to the watercolor brush. Pretty sizable, and we're just going to tap in behind here. Just tap for texture. You're happy with that. Duplicate it a couple times. Pinch it together. And in your gauge and blur that to about 7%. Above that, you're going to clipping mask, and you're going to go a little lighter around the edges, like so. Near the top, we're going to shift that more to the blue side. And the purple and the blue being the umbra and penumbra of the earth. So as night comes over, the earth's shadow is cast across. That's what makes night. So we're reflecting that in the color transitions between the background here. Like so. Pinch that together. And then above that, we can be lazy and we can use nebula or anything really. But I want to use luminance, light pen. Let's go with kind of a very light lavender white. We're going to come down here and we're actually going to individually tap in varying sizes. Tap, 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 tap. We have little stars here. You can even get creative, whip one in, and have a little bit of starbursting effect from it, like so. Which is going to look pretty cool when we blur this. Varying sizes like that. And this is where you can get a little lazy and just duplicate it, toss it around a little bit, like so. Grab this. We don't want the starbursting ones too close together, so let's do that. Pinch these together, and we're going to gauge and blur those any amount, but I like between 2 and 3. They're not the focal point, so you don't want too much attention on them. And then this blade of grass, we're going to start accompanying with other blades of grass. So above the background, pinch the background together. Above the background, we're going to return to the reed brush. We're going to go a little darker on the mint green. So organic reed. And we are going to whip in a few more blades of grass. Make them a little skinnier as they're going to be technically further away. Bring this up here. Like this, just kind of whip, whip, whip. Don't worry about their point of origin. Because we don't see the ground. We're going to actually put something else that conceals this in front. So these, it's going to go the grass he's on, something else, and then the background grass. And that's why we're not going to be too worried on the background grass about adding too much shading. We'll alpha lock it, go darker, and just kind of put in subtle strokes of where there'd be shadow, but nothing else. Just kind of crisscross like that. That looks good. And then a couple of them. Subtle highlight, highlight, highlights on the wrong side there. There we go. Highlight, 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 highlight. Done. Done the grass. So this piece can actually be unlocked. Blurred about 2%. Like so. And then between the grass layers, we are going to go with a orangey yellow. And we're actually going to go to Artistic Aurora and tap in little subtle, call them flowers or just some sort of foliage. These are going to be blurred, so they don't need to look perfect. Like so. And of course, underneath this one, we have some darker layers, because again, light to dark, that should exist in every single one of your layers. Underneath that, we're going to go even darker. like that. Pinch those together. Let's make one more on top and go where the moonlight's catching it. Like that. Pinch those together. Let's blur those about 1 to 2%. Like so. Grab these layers in the back, the grass one, bring it down like this. And we can even duplicate it. Bring this one over here. Bring this one over here. And these ones we just duplicated. Let's bring it down and clip it to the background. Clip. Like that. And then behind all of this, except for the background, you can put in a couple more of these in the further background. So we can actually shrink it down a bit as it gets further away. Darken it up. There we go. Go to a deeper yellow. Make sure that's in behind the grass. In behind. And then where the moonlight catches it. Like so. And this is going to be more heavily blurred. So about not quite 6, let's say 4 or 5. Even 3. 3 would look nice too. Now back on the upper layer of the grass. Go back to mint. Go back to organic reed. Just turn it down a bit. And this is where I will put a couple lines just to define where those blades of grass are. It's not necessary. It just adds a little bit of pop. And just do it on the one side. And then in the background behind these flowers, once again, go quite dark. And then I'm just going to whip in a bunch of grass in the distance, every which direction, and curve all different ways. Again, this is the reed brush. Kind of like this. Get it all in there. Same over here. And I'm going to blur that about 3%. Merge all that together, less these 2 layers here and here, and of course this one. Now, behind this and this, even behind this, you could go between these layers or this layer, but we are going to add a couple more things in here, and let's go with a nice teal blue, and we are going to go to luminescence, light pen. Little zip like that. So we'll just do a little zip and over like this, kind of like a tied shoe. Do another one here, but smaller. Give it little legs. Give it little legs. Little dot here. Little bow here. You can tell this wing's bigger, this wing's smaller, so it insinuates that it's actually flying in that direction. These are just little fey flies. Add spice to any piece. Like that. Over here. Zoom in so we get better details. One there. One there. Couple dots. There. Blur them 1%. And make another layer. And let's kind of do a body that's spiraled like that, almost like a Zelda style fairy. We're going to bring a wing over like this. Like that. Come in like that. We're going to go and give it some subtlety there. We can go behind it with a deeper blue. And I am going to use painting white acrylic. Go larger on that. I got tap that in. And then near the center here, tap in. It said Zelda-like fairy. Go teal here and tap that on the edge of the blue. A little bit on the wings. Like that. Duplicate that layer over top. So up here, turn that into additive or add layer. Blur it. 5%. Lighten it up. Like so. And underneath, you use inking, technical pen. Pen in what I want for the wings. Color drop those. This isn't the focal point, so you can be quick and minor details. Bring in that eraser. Kind of tap transparency near the centers of the wings. Gosh, and blur that about 2%. And bring the bright or the opacity right down. Merge those together. All but the additive layer, sorry. So merge those together and then blur that 1 to 2%. Like that. Boom. And there you go. You're done.